So everything that we do, every initiative that we take on, every hackathon that we hold, every new piece of emerging technology we investigate, and we partner with our business folks to determine if that can provide growth in any one of those three ways or in multiple of those three ways.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Tim Dickson. Tim is the Chief Digital and Information Officer of Regal Rexnord, a leading industrial solutions company that provides motors and powertrain products and earns in excess of $6 billion annually. Tim has been in his role for a little less than a year and a half, and in that role, he leads the organization's digital and IT functions and is focused on advancing Regal Rexnord's global digital capabilities, enhancing the company's e-commerce customer experience while fostering an environment where both customers and employees thrive. I look forward to learning more about the above through this conversation. Prior to his current post, Tim was the Chief Information Officer of Generac Power Systems. Tim Dickson, welcome back to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Great to see you again, Peter. Thanks for having me.
My great pleasure. Well, let's begin with your company, Regal Rexnord. It's maybe not, it's a consequential company, as I just noted, but maybe not in front of mind for everyone who would be listening. So why don't you fill in some gaps for those who may, especially those who may know a little less about Regal Rexnord?
Yeah, great company. So Regal Beloit grew up in a town called Beloit, Wisconsin, right across the border from Illinois. And for 50 years, acquired everything along the lines of electric motors and engines. We acquired GE's engine business. We acquired Emerson's motors business. And so Regal Beloit became a $2.5 billion electric motor engine company. And in 2019, my boss, the CEO, joined the company. In 2021, convinced the board to merge with the next two largest players of our particular industry. And in 2021, right after COVID, we merged with Rexnord Industries in downtown Milwaukee. And so we moved the headquarters from Regal Beloit to downtown Milwaukee. And the company became known as Regal Rexnord, as you hear today. And that was about a $4.5 billion company. And then right before I joined in 2023, we merged with a similar player in Europe and Asia called Ultra. And so here we are 3 years after that initial sort of merger, and $6+ billion industrial manufacturing company of some wonderful tools that are used by HVAC providers, heat pumps, pool pumps, conveyor belts, things along the line of industrial manufacturing, and have gotten some really cool products as of late with some recent acquisitions that bring us into the microsurgery space with small little motors and engines for autonomous surgery. And as of late, we also announced a partnership at the end of last year with Honeywell, where we'll be co-developing eVTOL air taxis in some of the larger cities here coming in a couple of years. So from an electric motor company and little old Regal Beloit, we're taking on some big initiatives and trying to do some cool things.
Remarkable. Thank you so much for that history and background. That's certainly a fascinating space in which you occupy, and some fascinating new areas that you've got into as well.
Absolutely.
Years. I wanted to ask you, I mentioned a little bit during the intro about your role, but I wanted to have you kind of double click on it a bit. What does your role as CDIO entail?
Yeah, so first CDIO in the history of the company. They had a CIO previously, but not a CDIO. And my boss and the board felt that it was important to determine if digital technologies can be used to drive growth at a 50-plus-year-old industrial manufacturing company. And so obviously I have in my role the IT organization, which I had previously managed at Generac. I have that in my background, but build out of a brand new digital strategy, build out of a brand new definition of digital for this industrial manufacturing company, build out of a brand new team and a capability, a mindset to prove that digital can drive growth for the company, which we're absolutely trying to do.
Well, it sounds, I want to linger on that point a bit longer, because I know from our past conversations, industrial manufacturing is not a high growth business, organically speaking. And so this commitment to go in not a different direction, but to establish an additional direction to the ones it already has is consequential. And it sounds like there was a lot of buy-in and from the CEO, the executive team, in making sure that this was a role that had some teeth and an ability to make some change. Talk a bit about the company you found, a little bit shy of a year and a half ago, and some of the progress you've been making in that direction.
Yeah, so the very first thing I did, and once again, in this space, in these roles, you take lots of coaching and a lot of advice. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good in that regard. So I've been fortunate to have a lot of good coaches and mentors along the way who've been CDIOs. And so there was a couple of different messages that they gave to me. The very first thing that they said is, you're being brought in to drive digital growth for the company. You need someone to lead the IT portion, the traditional IT organization. So one of the first things that I did was promote a fellow in the organization to run, he's now the VP of corporate IT, and he takes care mostly of an infrastructure, ERP, enterprise applications, the things that I owned at my previous company. And so now that I put him in place and he leads that part of the organization, I could put a lot of my effort and energy and time into the D side, the digital side, the build out of the team, the alignment around the strategy, the prioritization and funding of the programs that we're going to pick and choose, the ones that will provide this growth. So that was a very good bit of coaching advice I received that I definitely put into play. The second thing that I heard was, if you're going into an organization that didn't have digital in their remit before, you have to define what digital means for Regal Rexnord. And so a year ago or so, at our leadership conference, I took the opportunity to the entire organization to define digital for the organization. And digital for me basically is what we do and why we do it. So if you think on the left-hand side, we tried to engage in emerging technologies, emerging digital technologies, IoT, cloud, e-commerce, AI, generative AI, now agentic AI. Can any of these emerging digital technologies drive growth in any one of the following ways that bring business value to the organization? Can these digital technologies allow us to get bigger market share and wallet share for our existing distributors and customers? Can digital technologies allow us to pursue new customers in new markets and new regions that we hadn't traditionally been there before? Or can digital technologies just make it easier to do business with Regal Rexnord? Thus, some additional business in some way, shape, or form will come down the path later on if it's just easy to do business with us in some way, shape, or form. So everything that we do, every initiative that we take on, every hackathon that we hold, every new piece of emerging technology we investigate, and we partner with our business folks to determine if that can provide growth in any one of those three ways or in multiple of those three ways. And so that's kind of the mission. That was a fairly easy alignment exercise with that definition. People kind of get it. You kind of look at it and say, yeah, that's really what we're up to. And ultimately, it's up to me and my team to prove that out.
You mentioned that you promoted somebody who was already with the organization. It sounds like you've built also some additional weight and heft in the digital side of the business. Talk a bit about the combination of providing growth opportunities for people that were there prior to your arrival, along with bringing in new talent to help you achieve the vision that you created.
Yeah, so I'll just describe my organization briefly. So I have that VP of corporate IT running the I of the title. I have the CISO. So I'm in charge of cybersecurity, and the CISO runs an awesome cybersecurity team. I brought in the only person I actually hired from the outside. I brought in a senior director of enterprise PMO. There wasn't a PMO function in the organization prior to joining, and if I'm the guy that's bringing in all the ideas and quantifying them and prioritizing with the business, I had to bring this person in who had a framework and a methodology to bring a demand intake process and allow us to business case and ROI and prioritize those initiatives with our business partners. So that was a muscle that we didn't have that we now have. That's been awesome for me. And then we've got the digital side of the organization. I've got a director that runs BI and AI. AI being new to his remit. He was running BI previously. I have a director of e-commerce and web design. And I also have a director of generative AI, which a lot of folks don't actually have in their organization. So I feel fortunate that I have a person I can look to who's staying on top of all the changes with generative AI. There's certainly a lot of changes going on with generative AI. I'm very lucky to have a world-class IT development organization in India, in Hyderabad. And that team has been awesome from an upskilling perspective. We also had a hackathon in India in the April timeframe. We referred to it as our generative AI hackathons. A lot of the things that I hope to talk about here with you today actually came out of that hackathon in person in India. And I would just say I'm very thankful for the strategic vendor partners that I've brought with me to Regal Rexnord. They bought into my vision. They worked with me before, most of them, so they know my style. They know what I'm up to. They know I'm looking for big changes and kind of game-changing ideas. And they have upskilled my team on my behalf. They've offered free training of various different types, self-paced, instructor-led, et cetera. And so let's just say we brought in 10 to 12 new sets of technology, new platforms since I've been here. A lot of that has been through the partnership of those strategic vendor partners. They will eventually win business from me if they show they're willing to invest in my team and in the future for the long haul. And so it's been a partnership with both them and my team. And the team has really done a great job upskilling. I would probably say that more than I originally anticipated, have taken on these new skill sets and have moved into newer roles as a result of that new skill set gain through that self-paced training. So that is awesome to see when you have somebody who may have been, an SAP data analyst or a QA tester before, that now is in some sort of RPA function or agentic AI function or role or some sort of leadership role leading one of those newer initiatives for us.
Yeah, fascinating. I appreciate that overview, and it certainly paints a good picture as to the changes you made. Let's linger a little longer on the point you made about the generative AI hackathon that you had in India. I would love, first of all, to understand why India and not like at headquarters or near headquarters, for example. And then, of course, would love to understand kind of the methods you used and, very importantly, the fruit of that labor. What's come of it, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had two hackathons this year. One was in the U.S. in Chicago, my Chicago office, and one was in India. And the reason why we chose both is to have an in-person event at each of our larger locations. And so I have a digital team in Chicago and I have a digital team in India. I have my corporate IT team that's here and headquartered in Milwaukee with my business partners. But I wanted to go where the work would eventually have been done as a result of the ideas that we created coming out of each of those events. And so, you wouldn't have really imagined how much just even a year ago, generative AI would have taken off. In the January hackathon, we created our first generative AI prototype of a Gen AI chatbot that now sits out on our website called Rexy. It has been a huge game changer for us to do those things that I mentioned before, get additional share of wallet from existing customers, pursue new customers and new markets who might come to the website and want to interact through a chatbot as opposed to traditional search means, or make it easier to do business with us. You'll be able to purchase through Rexy and not even have to go to our authenticated website in the future. So that's an example of something that came out of the hackathon and that now is driving huge business value for us. From the generative AI perspective in India, I would say that we went nuts with bots. And anyone who knows generative AI knows that you put sort of a bot interface on top of an LLM that goes and connects with random different data sources, and you have an interaction of some sort with that application, with that data source, with that bot. And so we had engineering bots that we developed. We had an HR bot that we developed. We had a ServiceNow bot that we developed. And so we, in essence, try to determine if you could put a bot interface, a chat bot interface on top of some of these legacy applications and drive new value, new productivity, time to market, speed, morale, with not having to integrate, not having to interface with the legacy app, but have to interface via a chat bot interface, which is more interactive, more content driven, more videos and things of that nature. And so we proved that that is the case. And what we ended up doing as a result is consolidating all those applications under one interface internally, and we now refer to that as RRX GPT. That is the bot interface to any internal inquiry of any sort inside the company, whether that inquiry is to an application or that inquiry is to the corporate intranet, our benefits organization, our DEI programs. That data source comes from internal, and any employee, new or current, can use that interface to find answers to commonly asked questions. And so 500 or 600 people a day use this across the organization. And for something that would have been, let me ping the HR person to answer that question, let me ping the engineering lead to answer that question, boom, you go to chat, you go to RX GPT, ask the question, you get an answer back instantly. And so the productivity gains have been huge as a result of that. So Rexy, generative AI, externally, customer and new customer facing, RxGPT, internal facing, internal queries, internal productivities.
Very, very interesting. And may I ask, behind the scenes, are Rexy and RRX, are they driven by similar technology, or are they just completely distinct?
They're different sets of technology. If you imagine a year ago when we were having these hackathons, there was a lot of discovery going on. There was a lot of people trying to figure out which platforms were going to be here longer term, which platforms were here to stay. And so in order to get educated, we ended up taking a bet, if you will, on two new vendor partners that hadn't even existed before in this space. But as a result of them wanting to do business with me, them wanting to train my teams here in the US and India, we took a chance, and those have paid off, but they were purpose-built applications for those two specific use cases. Now, as we look forward in the future, and we see a lot of consolidation going on, a lot of these generative AI platforms are going to have to play well with other partners and other data sources and other tools. We're rethinking that strategy in what I would refer to as generative AI 2.0, and which is really just the second year into the journey of Gen AI.
And it sounds like remarkable adoption. You mentioned 500 to 600 people internally using it on a daily basis, for example. Can you talk a bit about the pathway to educating the team on how best to use it, and how arduous that was, if at all?
Yeah, so another best practice from another mentor. I mean, all of these new digital technologies have to take maybe a little bit of a different form of education and awareness. We start with best practices. How other companies have used bot interfaces like this internally, and what they've used it for, what's been their feedback and experience. We also do a corporate intranet announcement for everything that's a substantive nature with these new technologies. And we also require them to watch, not necessarily pass a test, but watch a video. And once the video has been completed, they will have learned how to interact with this new tool, this new capability. Then we give them access to it. And so that is just kind of a more of a methodical approach to make sure they know what they're doing, they're educated on the powerful aspects of the tool, and they use it and become more productive as a result.
Yeah, fascinating. I mentioned at the outset the passion you have in driving improvements in the company's e-commerce customer experience. And I have to imagine some of that is driven through Rexy, for example, but wanted to cover that topic a bit more specifically to understand further what you and the team are working on from an e-commerce customer experience perspective.
Yeah, so ultimately, as the Chief Digital Information Officer, I own the face to our customers, which is the website. And I did not feel that was the face to the customers that I wanted going forward. So one of my first initiatives after I joined was a complete redesign of the regalrexnord.com homepage. That is the entry. If you know anything about Regal Rexnord, we have acquired a number of product brands, and we try to showcase those brands through an experience that initially gets instantiated and initiated through entry into the website. So the Regal Rexnord brand is the brand of the company, the brand with the mission and vision that you just described, who we are as a company, our values, and we want to make that loud and clear. But once you identify that you would like to search for our products, learn more about our solutions, as an example, take on Rexy and get some images and videos and learn more about our products, then we take you down a path that's personalized and specific to you as a customer. And so I knew with that vision that a redesign of the website just had to take place. We came out with a new mission and vision statement last year, so there was a great opportunity to showcase that on the website. We came out with a number of different announcements. We had an investor day this year that was showcased very heavily on the website. We came out with some new products that obviously we showcased. So as a part of that initiative, a brand new content management system was purchased as a result that we've deployed, in a brand new e-commerce platform, because ultimately we would love our customers to purchase our products after they learn how great they are. So just two more new platforms that help the customer experience be better. Two new platforms that help the business sort of run the experience and manage the experience and personalize the experience a little bit better than before. But ultimately, like I said, these tools were purchased. The experience was redesigned as a result of ultimately proving that it could drive growth for a company.
It's striking, Tim. I mentioned at the outset, you've been in role for just a bit more than a year, and it's remarkable to think about the change that you've enacted in a year's time and the improvements and the demonstrated progress that you're describing. Can you talk a bit about, were there any pleasant surprises along the way that this organization could, in fact, digest all of this change and the improvements you and your team are driving?
Yeah, so I would say probably the nicest surprise that with AI and generative AI that you have to have your data in order. It's got to be connected and consolidated and cleansed, segmented, if you will. And so when I joined, I had been a user of a Microsoft Azure customer prior, had a little bit of knowledge of Snowflake, but when I joined, I inherited a Snowflake architecture and platform of which the data journey had already begun. And so the team had actually decided that with all of these acquisitions that we had done in the past, it was probably makes sense to integrate all of the company's data into one data platform. And they were doing that for integration purposes. And when I joined, I saw the work that had been doing. I immediately thought, what a perfect foundation, consistent, consolidated global data platform for AI and generative AI. So kind of, once again, sometimes better be lucky than good. I believe we have been able to do so much from both an AI, predictive modeling perspective and a generative AI perspective and soon to be agentic AI perspective as a result of the hard work the team has done to clean, consolidate, and connect data, which is a tough, rigorous, sometimes painful, sometimes manual job. So they put the hard work in, and now we're reaping the benefits of that hard work as a result.
Well, that's really great. Good to give credit where credit's due as well there. We're having this conversation, Tim, relatively early in 2025. And as you look to the year ahead, or maybe even beyond the year ahead, what are some other areas, topics, trends that excite you?
Yeah, so there's a lot going on up there, as you could probably tell. And people can get distracted, and people could take on too much if you don't have the right process and methodology and model to kind of stay on top of the technology, evaluate the ones that you think could move the needle, and then actually bring them in and deploy them and get the value. So I love that entire life cycle. Like I love that entire end-to-end life cycle, if you will, of discovery, business partnership, idea generation, proof of concept, prototyping, deployment, and then obviously getting the value. And the best conversations that I have with my boss and my peers are when we show the value has been attained or achieved in some way, shape, or form that wouldn't have happened otherwise if we didn't follow along in this methodology and model. So I look forward to taking that same model to new heights with agentic AI as an example. We've had a few that have come through this intake process, this prioritization process that are really going to do wonders for both customer service reps and sales agents. I think you know enough about agentic where that can automate a lot of customer interaction for you and hopefully allow your sales makers to sell and do what they do best, or allow your customer service people to service your customers a little bit more than what they may have done before because they were not spending it. They're spending a lot of time on tactical and simple little inquiries and things of that nature. So I'm excited about that. But ultimately, I'm excited about sort of putting a bow on 2024 and showing that all the initiatives that we kicked up are now delivering the value, showing the KPIs, the metrics, the dashboards, the orders, the things that ultimately result in what was fun 2024, but also a foundational year for driving growth for this business, which is why I was brought here to do.
Yeah, fantastic, Tim. I wondered before I let you go to see if there's anything you've recently read, watched, and or listened that you'd recommend to others, Tim.
Yeah, two recent books that I read. Last year, I read the AI Playbook by Eric Siegel, and that there's a concept in that book called BizML, and basically it's starting with the business case, starting with the business value, the business outcome before you do any of the modeling work. Get aligned with your business partners, with your team about the value that model is going to generate, the insights that are going to generate that value before doing any of the technical work. And he's got a framework, awesome framework in there that he uses to model that process out. So the AI Playbook by Eric Siegel. Eric's also speaking at my Summerfest Tech event this summer in Milwaukee. So great to have him as one of our keynotes. The second book is called The AI Savvy Leader. And that's a little bit of a different book because that kind of talks about things that leaders do in the AI space that help their teams and their leaders' organization know that they have their leaders' support, know that they have the backing, know that they actually are aware and knowledgeable about what the technology does, so they can speak and communicate about it in a business sense to a business leader. And so it kind of takes, sort of, I just call it a next generation AI leader, if you will, that is doing all the things to communicate to peers and partners and leaders and folks in their organization that shows they know their stuff, they know where the space is, they know where it's going, and they know what it can bring to the organization. And they're outwardly communicating on a regular basis, always trying to draw up that support and open transparency and keeping the entire organization at the same level in terms of education and awareness. And so The AI Savvy Leader is the second book that I read recently.
Great recommendations. David Ducramer, the author of the second one, is a past Technovation guest as well. So no, really good suggestions. Both.
You'll see a post on that here soon.
Excellent. Very, very good, Tim. Well, hey, Tim, thank you so much for taking time with me. Thanks for sharing a bit about the remarkable journey that, as I mentioned, in just a bit more than a year's time has produced some remarkable results, and looking forward to remaining abreast of the many results and improvements to come as well. Thank you so much again, and always grateful for your time.
And thank you, Peter, and thanks to your team. I think you were involved in the early days of a lot of that digital definition and strategy work. So partnering with Metis was a big part of getting started here. So I appreciate the partnership.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that.